Hey, this is Matt once again. We're about to now videos of the paid request, this time for Douglas. Thank you so much for that. And for those interested in requesting pretty much any type of videos, topics, reactions, commentaries, re-reviews, reviews in general, video game playthroughs, let's tries, what have you, feel free to send it either directly to my PayPal or join my Patreon. Both links are down below in the info box. And this is for the 1995 film Wild Bill. Now, Wild Bill is a film I had heard of, but had never seen before. And it's a film I forgot even existed until I got this request, because I heard about it back in the day because of Walter Hill. He directed it. And he did 48 Hours, he did Southern Comfort, very underrated film, about National Guardsmen dealing with these redneck weirdos in the bayou. The Warriors from in the 70s, that film. He did Streets of Fire. Last Man Standing with Bruce Willis he did after this, which I think is a bit of an underrated one. Did a very fun one. And it's one of those things where, as time went on, like a lot of directors, the career kind of went to a slump, and the 90s to the 2000s and afterward weren't the best time for Walter Hill. Like I said, he had 48 Hours and he had Southern Comfort, among other films. Producing films, he helped produce Aliens, among other movies. But, like I said, in the 2000s, I think he did Geronimo. I don't think that did much of anything box office wise. This film was a complete bomb. It came out in December of 95. In like 730 theaters, and it made like a total of $2 million on like a $30 million budget. It debuted like at number 12 or something, so it did nothing. Last Man Standing, which I do enjoy, that sadly did not do anything. That came out after this. He did Undisputed with Wesley Snipes, which didn't do much. I don't think it was that great of a movie. I actually think the sequels to that film are much better. And then he had a bit of a hiatus, and then came back with that Sylvester Stallone movie, Bullet to the Head, which was very underwhelming, very lousy. That film, The Assignment, that I thought was pretty lame. I think he last did like a Western, like no one's heard of. But I just wanted to get into that because this is a talented director. This is a guy that has done a lot of good stuff back in the day. The Warriors, 40 Hours, Southern Comfort, you just look at those, you go, wow. Extreme Prejudice, underrated one with Nick Nolte. The reason I've been talking about it for 3 minutes is because I kind of look at this and I go, what the hell happened? I get why the film was made, because it's the time period where Unforgiven won all the Oscars. Good movie. Tombstone came out. That's a great one. One of the best westerns, especially in the 90s. They weren't all hits. Wyatt Earp with Kevin Costner, that didn't do much of anything. But yeah, this came out, and like I said, they barely released it. It's not much of a release if it's only in like 700 theaters. And there's a lot of big names in this. You got Jeff Bridges, you got Ellen Barkin, you got John Hurt from the original Alien, you got Diane Lane, who would later be Martha Kent and Man of Steel and all those Zack Snyder Superman movies. You got David Arquette, this is before Scream. You got Bruce Dern, who would work with Walter Hill again in Last Man Standing the year after. James Remar, which I was surprised because I know they had a bit of a falling out because Walter Hill kind of stuck up for James Remar to get the role of Hicks in Aliens, but then he had a drug problem. I think in England they went into his place and they found like hash and heroin and stuff. One led to another, he was fired, kicked off, and then last minute they got Michael Biehn in, which was for the better. I don't mind James Remar, but Michael Biehn is Michael Biehn. He was born to play Hicks. But from what I understood, Walter Hill, who had used James Remar because he was the bad guy in 48 Hours, he was one of the main guys in the Warriors. He was persona non grata with Walter Hill. I guess they patched things up eventually. Might have been a smaller part, but they still work together again. There's other recognizable people. James Gammon, he was the manager, the coach in the first Major League movie. There's a few other people I recognize. And I know I'm talking for 5 minutes. I haven't talked about the movie, because the movie itself is a hell of a misfire. Because it's such a weird, so weirdly edited of a movie. Because, like, the way it starts with, of course, it's about Wild Bill Hickok, played by Jeff Bridges, who does a pretty decent job. He's one of the positives about the film. But it's like they start with his funeral, and John Hurt is there. Ellen Barkin plays Calamity Jane, she's there. John Hurt is narrating, and then they just go to random parts of his life, Jeff Bridges' life. So they go to a bit where Jeff and James Gammon, they're in a field, and they see the Native American, and some of the stuff is done in black and white. Actually, no, that's not true. The first thing is they show a black and white flashback where he's shooting a glass off a dog's head in a bar. Then they go to a flashback in color, or is it a flash forward amongst all the flashback? Because, like I say, the first bit is a funeral, so everything technically is a flashback. But now it's in color, and that's when James Gammon and Jeff Bridges see Native American who's at this burial site, and the guy wants to kill Jeff Bridges. And James Gammon's like, no, you can't kill him, Wild Bill, because it's bad luck. And I'm sitting there going, what do you want him to do? Use harsh language? The guy's shooting at him. So they go towards each other. You see and hear this flash of a bang. You get the idea that Wild Bill won. Then it cuts to, he's now in a different place, in a different area, in the winter time, where some people mess with him, and he has a shootout in a bar. Then he's in a different bar, and he's the sheriff, and some soldiers, one of them he had to take care of. The other soldiers want revenge. You get in a bit of a fight. And then he gets some guns, and he starts shooting at the soldiers. Then there's another bit where he's on the street against other people. And he's in the middle of a fighting. He turns, he shoots someone, and then someone later on goes, that's your deputy you shot. And then he's freaked out. Then he's like, everybody leave. Whoever's out here, when I count to blah, 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 I'm going to shoot you. I'm going to kill you. So people leave, and then he gets down to his deputy, who is his buddy, and then cries. And this goes on for, like, 10, 15 minutes? I'm sitting there going, when is the movie going to start? I mean, technically it started, but it's like, we go from funeral to a fighting in a field to when a bar, then we're in a different bar, then we're outside of a different bar. Maybe the same bar, but it's a different time. And it just seems like a random series of events that happens without much of a structure to it. If it is maybe put together by string cheese. And again, I'm sitting there going, what the hell's going on? What's happening? And when the movie finally settles itself with all the crazy, weird, random editing, it just throws off the pacing entirely. Then it's like, okay, it's going to be about the last days in Deadwood with Wild Bill. Calamity Jane wants to get in his pants, but he's distant. She doesn't understand why he's so distant. There's this younger guy, played by David Arquette, who's going to be the guy that during the poker game shoots him in the back of the head. Although I think they wildly change what really happened. Because in the movie they make it that, oh, Wild Bill you left my mom and my mom was sad, and then you killed this guy that she was in love with because he had your pocket watch, and you refused to take care of her, and I want revenge, and you said you'd take care of me and you didn't. And he's like, wants to kill him but he can't, and he's more scrawny and he's a bit more unsure on what to do, a little bit of a coward, all this other stuff. I don't think David Arquette was the best. I like David Arquette, don't get me wrong. I do like David Arquette. I don't think he was the best guy for this. I don't think he was ready for this. I don't think he seemed... I mean, maybe you say he fits where he's supposed to be this guy who's unsure and he thinks he's tough, but he's not really, so people are easy to throw him around and throw him out of the saloon. You just say maybe he's right for it for that, but at the same time, he did stick out. For good or for bad, he did stick out. And like these random scenes where like Bruce Dern is in a wheelchair, like he can't use his legs, and he's like, "I'm calling you out." So Jeff Bridges has people bring him out in his own chair. I want to make it fair for you, and they do a draw, and he shoots Bruce Dern. There are times he goes to the Chinese district of this town and he takes opium. And I have like these dreams of like when he met the Native Americans at one point, and somehow if you see a dog, your days are numbered. Sometimes we get a couple flashbacks of Diane Lane, who was David Arquette's mom, what happened back in the day. Like I said, it just seems very meandering, oddly paced, and not that eventful. Even the shootout scenes. If you want to see Walter Hill do crazy shootout scenes in an old setting, the next year he did Last Man Standing, which to me, that was a much better... I mean, it takes place in, what, the 30s, like Prohibition era. But that's still more of a Western to me than this. I mean, technically, this is more of a Western, as cowboys and Native Americans, but that felt in a better, more positive way, more like a Western, Last Man Standing, and just the look and the dusty town, and that more of a actual narrative, taking a bit of stories in the past. Was it Yojimbo? What became... They later did in for a fistful of dollars, a guy playing off both sides and working for both sides, but knocking both of the opposition off so he could cash in all the money. You know, there are other films that did that. But I say, if you want that Walter Hill action, excitement, like the next year, Last Man Standing did that so much better, which I still haven't picked up on Blu-ray. I forgot. I just remember now that it is on Blu-ray. I don't think it has any feature, Sally, but... Now, Jeff Bridges, like I said, I do like. There's a couple of decent dialogue exchanges. There's a bit where he'll talk with Ellen Barkin, and she kisses, and he's doing this, and she's like, "You wiping it off?" "No, I'm rubbing it in." Or some kid is told, this is before we find out Bruce Dern wants him to fight, to draw. This kid is forced to go in and tell, well, this guy said this and this guy said that. And then he said something else that I can't say. Well, go ahead and say it. He said that you molest horses. And then he turns and he's looking at his gun and he goes, "Did you say which horse?" Like, that was kind of funny. But man, it just, you don't really get a sense of a story. You don't... I watched a whole movie called Wild Bill, and I still don't have a sense of who the guy is. He killed people. He's worried about something. He has regrets. But it just comes off as more shallow, and not as deep, and not as thought out as they wanted it to be. So people watching, you're not getting the exciting action that you're thinking of Walter Hill, who did 48 Hours, or the intensity of something like Southern Comfort or Extreme Prejudice. You're not getting that. You're not getting this kind of actual story arc like Tombstone, where we set up the characters, we get to know the characters, then we have what happens in Tombstone, then we have the aftermath of that. It just like random, and then, oh, by the way, here's the last few days. And the only thing you can really cling on to is him and Calamity Jane. She wants to be with him, but he's distant until ultimately in the third act they do have sex. And they're stopped by David Arquette and some people he hired. One of them is James Remar. And then the scene that goes on forever where it's like, I want to shoot the guy. No, I don't want to shoot the guy. You know what? Maybe Jeff Bridges has had it. Well, why don't I just shoot myself? Before that, John Hurt is trying to reason to Jeff Bridges. Just apologize. I don't apologize. Then he's trying to reason to David Arquette, but he's not having it. Then John Hurt's like, oh, I don't know what else to do. Then he gets punched by James Remar. And then after, it's like, Jeff Bridges, I'm tired of this. Why don't I just shoot myself? David Arquette looks at the gun, deals with it, gives him the gun. Jeff Bridges tries to shoot him, but it's empty. Then David Arquette goes, ha 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 ha. See, I killed your heart. I embarrassed you. So now it's done. So then, this is spoilers. Then they leave. Then Jeff Bridges gets his guns and he's pissed for being embarrassed. He goes in, and even though James Remar and them are leaving, although you get the hint that they'll maybe try to come back. Although I'm thinking, why don't you just shoot him now in the bar when he was unarmed? James Remar is ready to do it, but then he doesn't. But then they make the hint like, we'll come back. I'm like, why do you need to come back? Do it now. But then it seems like they don't want to leave. But then Jeff Bridges wants to take care of them. Then tells David Arquette, leave. I don't want to give you a chance because of your mother. And all that jazz. And then it's one of those things I'm sitting there and going, okay, where's this leading up to? And long story short, as I'm rambling, David Arquette is ready to leave, then he doesn't leave, then he goes back in the bar, and they're like, you need to get out of the bar. He's like, listen, I apologize, I just want to have one more drink. I'm sitting there going, how many times are you going to give this kid a chance before you wonder, maybe he's not going to take the hint, and you do something first. So he goes back, then gets a drink, and no one's watching him. Like, this guy, we talk about how he wanted to kill Wild Bill, and yeah, he did all this other stuff right before, but he made all this trouble, he hired all these guys, he did all this stuff. Not one person is watching him, not one person is paying attention to him, not one person is making sure, and they notice something. No. And you can't say that's how it happened in real life, because for understand, none of that is how it happened in real life. There was no, oh, he was an illegitimate son of Wild Bill. For understand, McCall was the character's name, Jack McCall. He was playing poker, and he lost. And Wild Bill said, hey, you know what, man? Let me do you some breakfast. Don't play anymore. You know, you need to cover your losses, but, you know, here's a little bit of money to help you out. So he felt insulted, got drunk at one point, came back, ordered a drink, looked, and out of the blue came and shot him in the back of the head. Now, you may say that's less interesting of a story, but at the same time, if this is a story detailing how chance, fate, luck, whatever the case may be, screws with Wild Bill, which I don't even know if that was the point. At least I don't even get what the whole point of the movie was. It's based on a 1978 stage play called Fathers and Sons. and the 1986 novel Deadwood. Maybe that was the problem. Maybe that was the issue. Maybe it was the basis of that, but also just Walter Hill writing it. Maybe that's the issue. He should not have written the film. The way it's edited, some of the actors seemed a bit overacting. Ellen Barkin, like the more the running time went, the more twang she got in the accent. John Hurt barely had much to do other than once in a while hanging out with Wild Bill and Wild Bill not listening to him. Diane Lane in a couple flashbacks. Teef Terradine, who was in Southern Comfort as one of the leads, he was completely wasted in this role. I find it funny, he's like number 5 on the call sheet. He's in the film for like 5 minutes, if that. He's in like one little section where he plays Buffalo Bill. He's doing his show, and there's Wild Bill over there, and he's not that great of an actor. And it's just more of like, here's a little scene, then we transition to the rest of the movie. Again, David Arquette, Christina Applegate, she plays a prostitute who has a little bit of a fling with David Arquette's character. Christina Applegate, of course, from Married with Children. She was in Don't Tell Mom the Babysitter's Dead. Marjoe Gortner as a preacher. He has like 1 or 2 scenes. I heard of this documentary he was a part of. I never did see it. It sounds interesting. Where I guess as a kid he was raised to be an evangelist, but as he grew older he realized how corrupt it was and he escaped from them. Like, he realized there's a lot of corruption and they just want your money and all that stuff. And then he like tried to be in a couple movies. He was in Star Crash. He was the main businessman bad guy, the Cobra, in American Ninja 3 with David Bradley. I mentioned James Remar. Yeah, there's a Broadway play, Fathers and Sons, written by Thomas Babe, and as he said, he entirely made up the nature of Jack McCall, whom he turned into Hickok's illegitimate son. And it's like, okay, but you didn't really have much in terms of depth playing off of that. Like, I never had a son, and hey, be better than me, or anything of the sort of the script, of whatever the hell he was trying to do. That's my question. I don't know what the hell he was trying to do. I could definitely see why you look at the final product and it just doesn't make a damn bit of sense at all. It just sucks. It sucked. That's just my opinion. But with that said, thanks for watching, everyone. Take care. We'll see you guys later. Like I said, Walter Hill made a lot of good films. This, to me, was not one of them. And again, you look at 90s westerns like Unforgiven and Tombstone, among other movies. This, I can see why it's forgotten. It's cool to see Jeff Bridges. The musical score, I don't think added much. The weird just pacing and randomness it feels like for the first chunk of the movie. If it tried to have some emotional depth, it didn't work. The action scenes were just kind of... Hell, if you want to see just action, The Quick and the Dead, as straightforward as that is a lot more entertaining than this. You just watch The Quick and the Dead by Sam Raimi. That may not have a lot of emotional depth, and Sharon Stone, I think, is miscast. I think a lot of other actresses would have been better, but still a lot more fun than this one. That's just me, though. With that said, thanks for watching. We'll see you guys later. Bye-bye for now.